Hello everybody, I'm Ramsis.
And I'm the Vesper.
And we're here for another review of a pilot TV series episode. And this time we got a classic of classics that every kid who grew up in the 1980s should be familiar with.
That's right, it's Knight Rider, the pilot episode, Night of the Phoenix. Hey, see what they did there? Night of the Phoenix? Debuted
on NBC on September 26, 1982. It was written by Glenn A. Larson and directed by Daniel Haler. And oh boy, we can't wait to review and give our thoughts on the 2-hour-long initial episode that started the beloved action crime solving series that ran for 4 seasons from 1982 to 1986 and had various spin-offs to follow in the years later. But you know us here on Vespors Retro Reviews. Before we can move forward and return to the past in the present, we had to see how everything all started and what brought forth the creation of such an iconic show.
So it's time to see the history and creation of the 1982 TV series Knight Rider, starring David Hasselhoff as Michael and his Pontiac Firebird supercar named KITT, also known as Knight Industries 2000.
The creation and brainchild of Knight Rider all circles around one person, television producer Glenn A. Larson. The name should be familiar as he was behind many other iconic shows, some of those whose influence is seen directly tied into or from Knight Rider. Little shows such as Battlestar Galactica, Magnum P.I., and The Fall Guy. We seeing a trend here? Yes, Knight Rider has a flavor of all these shows.
Now, having these ideas and producing the shows is fine, but to get a show to the air, you need the president of a network to be in need of a new show, one preferably that matches his ideas at the time. Enter one of our old favorites here. The man behind A-Team is also the man behind Knight Rider. That's right, President of NBC Brandon Tartikoff was looking for new shows to fill his early 1980s lineup. Hopefully you know the story behind the A-Team and why Brandon wanted that show. If not, check out our episodic review of the pilot episode of the A-Team on our channel.
But the story behind Knight Rider is a little different than the A-Team. It was almost the opposite of the A-Team, actually. He was tired of the cookie-cutter format of shows as of late, where it was all about some male action hero doing amazing things and detective work, rinse, rather, repeat every time. What if we had a male lead hero, but the car was the center point of the show, and through the use of the car, the hero was led to proper ways and places?
To be fair, this wasn't all the Tartikoff's original idea. This too was due to something Glenn A. Larson had done previously in a show that he created in 1979 called BJ and the Bear, where such a premise was showcased in an episode of that series.
That's right, the episode in question was called Kane's Cruiser, where the premise was a supercomputer police car was created that can tell everything wrong with vehicles that will generate a lot of money for government entities like police and the FBI, helping them greatly. Of course, BJ and friends are being targeted by such a car, and now they have to figure out how to stop it, even though it is one step ahead of them at every point during this episode.
Now, this episode and idea from Tartikoff led to the discussion to be had with Larson to take the premise of that episode and make a whole new series out of it. It's not about the guy driving the car, but the car itself assisting the guy who is the driver. Larson himself said,
"Well, like Knight Rider's the Lone Ranger. It's one man comes into a town and he has a little more going for than people think, and that's a great theme. That's not, I didn't make that up. That's what it is."
So the show is basically the Lone Ranger, someone trying to do right, going from city to city on his loyal steed. In this case, it's a car named KITT instead of a horse named Silver.
That's right, that's right. And KITT, the horse in this case, is a souped-up sports car who is invincible, super intelligent, and capable of doing many feats with the push of a single button. It can speak, think, learn, and drive all on its own. The idea of the show is to have a good-looking hero sit in the car, but the car being the character you want to see more than the human focal points.
With such an iconic car being needed, the show's producers went right to the chief designer at Pontiac, John Sinella, and told them what type of show they were doing and what type of car they would need in it. At first he scoffed at the idea, But then, as he started to work on it, he understood and came up with what a top-of-the-line supercar would play out. Not to mention, he was liking the idea that a Pontiac would be the focal point of the show as well.
When all was said and done, it cost over $100,000, and this is back in the early 80s, by the way, to create and finalize the main version of KITT. The car would have all sorts of gadgets activated by the push of a button, joystick handle steering wheel, readout displays, monitors, and status readouts, as well as a digital speedometer, which was a novelty on cars back then.
But with all the top-of-the-line gadgets and features, the car still lacked a soul. That was until show creator Larson went back to something from his previous show, Battlestar Galactica, and took one of the Cylons who had red lights that moved back and forth upon them and put that same type of light bar on KITT, and thus his heart beat and life was given in a sense.
Now, with the car and premise of the show finalized, they still needed a lead actor to drive the car, even if he would be secondary to the fun of the show itself. They got their answer when David Hasselhoff was chosen to play the role of the reborn Michael Knight.
So David Hasselhoff was unknown as they could come back in the early 80s. He was mostly doing supporting roles on various TV shows, his most famous being Snapper Foster on the soap opera The Young and the Restless. But he had the look that Targarov had in mind with who would drive the car. Young, adventurous, well-built, and someone who you would believe would be able to do what is called upon of the Michael Knight character. And thus, he was instantly chosen.
And what about the voice of the Knight Industries 2000, aka KITT? You needed just the right voice to fill in that spot. And boy did they have one in William Daniels, but it took them a lot of time to get to understand that it wasn't just a robot, but a thinking and learning AI that should be more humorous, thoughtful, and friendly. But thank goodness we got 4 seasons for Williams to get his way and make KITT's voice and sayings just as memorable as Michael Knight's character became.
Fun fact, David Hasselhoff, who is in every single episode of Knight Rider, has spoken lines with William Daniels' KITT's character, and they never met each other in person until much later into its creation during a studio Christmas party. And when they both found out the characters they played, Daniels grinned and said, "Oh, we have a hit, don't we?" Even more fun is that Daniels didn't want credit for doing the voice of KITT, as he wanted the mystery of how they were getting the car to speak to be in everyone's heads every time they watched it.
Before the show could go live in September of '82, they still had one last aspect to fill in, the now very iconic and well-known show theme and soundtrack. Stu Phillips worked with Glenn A. Larson on the tone of the theme. And it's the 1980s, so you know synth is going to be heavily used. There was up to 6 synthesizers used at a time in the memorable theme, along with drums and Fender bass to create the iconic theme song that once you hear it, you won't be able to get it out of your head anytime soon.
Another fun fact is that the theme isn't just random synth beats that came together. It too is based on something. That something is Leo Delibes' ballet Sylvia, and they used various parts of the Cortège des Bacchus third act to base the iconic theme off of. So,
wow, I didn't know that.
Very classy.
Yeah, I'll tell you, boy, every time you hear the Knight Rider thing, you're going to think of that now. With everything created and ready to go, the show was ready for its big debut. A 2-hour premiere episode was released on broadcast on NBC at 8 p.m. The night when history was made, September 26, 1982, and America fell in love with KITT and the show right then and there. But the time slot and night to show it, that wasn't cemented. It was a terrible time, as a very popular show known as Dallas was already owning that time and night. While Knight Rider did well against it and held its own, it's when it became a Friday night staple that became the second highest rated show for the season, only losing to MASH.
The pilot episode, Night of the Phoenix, was shown in its entirety as a 2-hour movie-type episode. For syndication, it'd be split into 2 separate parts, with all episodes of Knight Rider being broadcast over a 1-hour period. There was 22 episodes, 21 if you count the pilot episodes as just one episode, made in total for the first season, and the ratings were so good it was already renewed by the time filming of the last episode of the season was done.
But a little background on some of the characters of the show is needed before we get into the actual review. At least for the first season's assortment of characters, as this would definitely change as we move into the 4th season as the show concluded. So we already talked a little bit about the star of the show, and that would be David Hasselhoff. That's right, he played Michael Knight. But before we get to that, we should mention that In the initial episode, Michael Knight was played by somebody else, Larry Anderson, who would be Michael Long. Now, we're not going to give everything away because we want you guys to watch the review here. Larry Anderson is who you'll see for the first, like, say, 20 minutes of the episode playing the Michael Knight character.
That's right, but I tell you what, when they switch over to David Hasselhoff, it's still the same character.
Pretty much. All right, so David Hasselhoff, the Hoff. What else can we say about the guy? He's as iconic and as memorable as they come. We already mentioned a little bit in the history of him that he was unknown, but he did mostly soap operas in his early career, and he just had that perfect look for the well-built, handsome guy you want to bring home, guy you're proud to show off, that type of look. Not the smartest guy, but you know he can get it done. And he played Michael Knight so perfectly, he became almost iconic with the show itself. The idea was to make the car iconic, but I would like to believe that David Hasselhoff as Michael Knight became just as iconic to the show.
There's this little TV show called Baywatch in which he played Mitch Buchanan.
Ah, yes.
And he played that character for 11 years. He also did some fun things, including Dodgeball, SpongeBob SquarePants the movie.
Now, a lot of you younger fans may remember him as Judge on America's Got Talent. He was actually there for 3 or 4 years. But yeah, that's who played Michael Knight, and he really became iconic from the show, and his career just took off from that. So now, the voice of KITT. This is just as iconic to the show, and that is William Daniels. Now, William Daniels is famous for later in his career being on Boy Meets World as Mr. George Feeney. But before that, he was a character actor on almost everything you could think of. You know why? Because he has such an iconic look. He's like the old professional looking. He has the intelligent voice, the British tones to it. He had a very sophisticated sound. So whenever you needed a character actor with someone playing an important person, you had William Daniels. He was like such a fit. And so when the time came to pick the voice for KITT, you wanted someone that had that intelligent and robotic but intellectual AI type of voice. Give William Daniels the credit, as I mentioned. He's the one that changed the character. Now, if you watch the first season episode, you'll see that he was very monotone, very robotic, very without character. That's how they pictured the KITT. He became more jovial, he had personality. That's all due to William Daniels wanting to put a little more personality into what was otherwise a very dry character in KITT. So who played the boss, Devin Miles?
That would be Edward Mulhare. He was also known for another television series, Ghost and Miss Mirror. However, he did a lot of other television shows, much like William Daniels. His fame was pretty much in TV series, movies.
Because he too had that stereotypical 70s character actor where you needed the professional looking guy, and again, he was an older gentleman even at this time, so he had that professional, sophisticated, because he played Devin Miles. Devin Miles is a very stuck-up professional. He does everything by the books, he tries to do the right things, but at the same time, he considers Michael Knight a friend and wants to help him any way he can, but he wants to do it by the book. So he played that type of character. He'll be in every episode also, and whenever Michael needs authorization, wherever he gets his assignments, whenever he needs to find out what's going on, Devin Miles is who he would call every time. Usually, he was on his side, but sometimes they conflicted, and that was part of the show too, where Devin didn't like that Michael wasn't always playing by the rules and wasn't always doing everything he was told.
Every show in the 80s needed a female co-star, and that female co-star was Patricia McPherson, who played Bonnie Barstow. She was actually kicked off after the first season because executives did not think she was sexy enough, but the person they replaced it was sexy, but could not act out of a wet paper bag.
Unfortunately, that's true, and I don't want to badmouth the actress because she was fine and tried harder, but you're replacing someone who is still pretty. I still think Patricia McPherson was a beautiful woman, but she could act and she was believable in the part. Why would you change it? Because television executives are stupid. I can't say it any better than that. So they brought her back third season and she was there to finish the rest of the show, which was a wise decision. Everyone was very happy about that. Now, Patricia McPherson really isn't known for much. She really is only known as being on Knight Riders. But what is Bonnie's character? Bonnie is important because she really is not just the mechanic. You have to remember, KITT is a computer on wheels. So she's really the engineer. She's really the computer specialist. She's the one that will also do the mechanics, but she speaks to KITT. She can fine-tune them. She can know what's wrong. She's the one that is always there. Whenever there's any problem with KITT, you go to Bonnie and she was able to handle it right away. And she played the part so well, so much better than the one they replaced her with.
But last but not least, and only in the pilot episode, do we have Richard Basehart as Wilton Knight.
The Wilton Knight character is important because, believe it or not, this theme is going to play out throughout the entire series. He only shows up in the pilot episodes, the 2-hour pilot movie, that's it. But he's the reason why everything happens. So his name is Knight, and we're not going to give away because we're about to give the full review here, but something happens to Michael Long and Wilton Knight gets involved, and hence Michael Knight. You can see the connection already there with the names, and he's the reason why everything happens. So he really isn't seen ever again, but you hear his voice actually at the end of every episode.
One man can make a difference, Michael. Michael Knight, a lone crusader in a dangerous world. The world of the Knight Rider.
He's vital. Without him, you wouldn't have a Knight Rider, you wouldn't have a flag. He was the money behind it, and he's the reason why everything happened. You need a, like, why is this foundation exist? This guy. Why do they have so much money? This guy. How is KITT created? This guy. So he's the answer to all your questions of Knight Rider, and then once you remove him, that's it. We don't need any more questions because this guy did it. That's all the explanation we need to know, and they at least established it, and there's a story behind it. And that is the 5 main characters that we need to discuss for the pilot episode of Knight Rider. We just finished watching the episode, and I can't wait to talk about it with you. Stay tuned. We're going to set it up right now. Stay tuned for the review of Night of the Phoenix, the pilot episode of Knight Rider, September 26, 1982.
So, our episode now begins with a nice, wonderful setting shot of Las Vegas.
And this is as old school Vegas as you can get. You are talking early 1980s Vegas, and it looks nothing like it does now. You'd be surprised at how dated this Vegas is. But yes, this is really what Las Vegas used to look like once upon a time. So they're really setting the mood for what we have in store here for the beginning of this episode. And remember, this is the first time we're being introduced to this world. So this is really cool. We're getting undercover. We're getting ready for a big adventure. And here we go. Las Vegas. Can't be in a better place than that.
And you know what you're expecting when you're watching Knight Rider? You're expecting David Hasselhoff. But wait, this is the pilot. Instead, we have Larry Anderson as Michael Long.
Michael Long, and we'll explain as we go along, and I'm sure most of you fans of the show would understand, but there are probably a few people that have not seen Knight Rider, so this is actually an interesting story. So, police detective Michael Long, and he is a Los Angeles police detective, by the way. They're doing a special mission in Las Vegas here, which doesn't happen often, but they've been trailing this group for a very long time. They sort of kind of explain it, a lot of details are left out. So he's working with his partner, Muncie, and he's played by Herb Jefferson Jr., and yeah, there's a big stakeout. They've been waiting months and months to catch her. It's great. This is going to unfold very nicely. A lot of partners working with a lot of women, and it's a lot of people all over the place. It is a little confusing, honestly, at first.
But it gets better, folks, and the reason it gets better is because during this hectic opening, we come to find out that Michael Long is on a 6-month extended assignment to protect 2 executives of the Consolidated Chemical Corporation who have become the recent victims of apparent industrial sabotage.
Yep, and these executives are Tanya Walker, played by Phyllis Davis, and Charles Acton, that's right, Acton, played by Ed Gilbert. So these are the 2 people he's assigned to protect, and he has no idea what's going on. And what's really happening the whole time is Charles Acton just won a lot of money in the casino, and he wants to put all these chips into his room, and they're trying to stall him, and they're telling him to cash out his chips, and all the while, Lonnie is in the room taking pictures of blueprints, microfilm onto one of those little snap cameras.
And she was sent there by the head of security of what is to be called Comptron, Fred Wilson, who is played by Vince Edwards. So, right off the bat, you know who the bad guy is. Yeah, the big twist is going to happen in exactly like 7 minutes.
Yes, so this is going to be a very long build-up, but yes, realize there's a lot of weird stuff going on. And Michael Long and his partner Muncie are on the trail. So Muncie's the electrician, or pretending to be, and the guy who's talking to Tanya is suspicious of the electrician, Muncie, because he said, that's weird, why would an electrician be working outside the suite there? They're aware that the cops are on their trail, so this is not a surprise to them, so they want her to get out of there quickly before any cops show up.
And by the way, Muncie is the most obvious person you're going to see. He's wearing nothing but a pure white jumpsuit, and he is clearly following her literally 15 feet behind her the entire time.
Yeah, for a police detective, he's not being very secretive, but Michael Long, that's our hero here, he realizes that the gig is up, and he too just runs out on everybody, leaving the rich guy there on their own. But Tanya goes along with Michael because Michael thinks he has to protect her at the same time. So she jumps along with Michael as the chase is on. So now Lonnie and Charles now are driving off, and Michael and Tanya are chasing after them. It's actually very confusing because it's very hard to keep up with all these characters. They have so many characters flying at you in this opening 10 minutes of the episode. And you never see most of these characters again. You see 2 of them, but that's about it. So they have character flying at you. So now we have Wilson then wants one of the security guards Vernon Gray, who's played by Lance Legault, to go after the electrician, quote unquote, because he knows he must be an undercover cop. So Lance now chases after him, and then they get into the parking lot. Again, there's a lot of confusion, and unfortunately, very sadly, Michael Long has to watch his partner get shot by the security guard, and that's it for him. And
yep, Vernon just puts a silencer on and kills him in the middle of a parking lot, as if those weren't monitored heavily in Las Vegas with CCTV cameras everywhere.
People do die in Knight Rider, but usually it's in the opening scenes like this, and then the whole adventure starts. So it is true to form here, but it's very weird to watch Michael's partner just get killed in cold blood like that, and Michael just has to chase after her, and now it's personal to him.
Let's do this. Put it up on the screen for them. So we have Wilson equal bad guy. Next we have Tanya equal
good guy.
Question mark. Vernon Gray, security guard, bad guy. We have Michael Long equal good guy.
And we have Muncie equals dead. So there you go. That's what's happened here, and it's not looking good. So imagine watching this for the first time, and you're seeing it's a police detective show. You're like, oh, this was just called Knight Rider. We have no idea what the show is about. So there's a lot of shooting. There's a mystery. You think it's going to be like a regular detective show where a lot of deaths happen, a lot of adventures, a lot of undercover stuff. Is that what the show is going to be about? That's what you wonder.
Well, oh no, we do get to see something. A 1982 Pontiac Firebird Trans Am, because that's what Michael Long and Tanya jump into to pursue Lonnie and Wilson into the desert.
Yep, and Michael, he has a faster car. He's able to catch up to them, and Michael has him at gunpoint. So he and Tanya get out of the car, and he's warning Tanya, you know, you have to be very careful. These guys are bad news, and she's acting all like, oh my God, really? This can't be real. What is happening, Michael? Michael holds at gunpoint, and he has them in cold blood. That's it. Drop your guns or I'll shoot. And then Michael's trying to convince Tanya the whole time, Lonnie and Wilson are bad guys. You're getting mixed up with a very bad crowd. Be very careful. I'll protect you. And Tanya's playing all, oh my God, Michael, really? Oh, this is I can't believe any of this. This is terrible, terrible. And while he's convincing her, Wilson comes to a stop. Michael has him dead to rights.
Now, I do want to point out to this point, Tanya has been acting a little bit suspicious. She is a CEO, and you can see that she's not this big gung-ho character. And she just immediately wants to charge after the police officer says, stay here, I'm here to protect you. No, Michael's there to protect her and her friend. Why in the world is she doing this? So right there's some red flags.
Michael made some mistakes here. I think, unfortunately, this is going to cost him something valuable as we're about to get to. It's not good. Michael was very foolish, but that happened a lot in these 80s shows where a guy gets taken in by a beautiful woman. And that's going to be a running theme in Knight Rider 2. He gets taken in by the beautiful girls, and it happens here too. So Wilson stops the car because he meets up with another associate, Gray, and he wants to transfer the film. All right, so this is what the big deal was. Lonnie took these pictures in the hotel room, and now they want to get this film of all these secret, microchips to someone else, and that's where Michael then catches up to them because he sees the transfer taking place in front of him.
By the way, just saying, that camera would not be able to get enough detail on those microchips to understand what the heck she was taking pictures of.
Yeah, exactly. This is not super camera. This is not James Bond. This is just a regular mini cam. It's not, this is 1983 technology. We're not talking about a great camera here. Very, very silly, but whatever.
And why the heck do they have blueprints in the Tropicana Hotel in Las Vegas instead of in the vault at the actual company?
They don't explain it.
The idiot wanted to take those chips to his room, so he must have figured, gee, I guess it's safe if I take it with me too.
I guess so. I mean, it makes no sense. There's a lot of details there. It doesn't make any sense. They don't explain many of the little details.
Turn your brain off, folks.
There's a reason for it. We're just not told it. That's what you have to go with here. So now Michael is going to corner them, and this is a great part. He has the gun on them.
Oh, by the way, folks, notice how they don't put any light on his face at this point. There's a reason for this.
Yes, we have to sort of forget what he looks like because we're not going to see this actor ever again. So Larry Anderson, thank you for his services, because what's about to happen? Tanya gets out too. She's like, what's going on? And Michael's about to shoot, only for
Tanya to pull out a gun herself and say, drop it, Michael.
And he's like, no, Tanya, oh, no, this can't be. And that's it. She doesn't even give him another chance. She just shoots him point blank. Pretty much.
By the way, in the head. This is also why they put the black on there as well, so you're just like, well, I guess that's the end of Knight Rider. Michael's dead.
Exactly, that's it. And that was assumed. He's left for dead. They drive off, and that's it.
And there you go. Just go ahead and play the credits, Ramsey.
Vespors. No, that's not the end. This is just the beginning. Don't you remember what happens next?
They shot him in the head, Ramses. He's not getting up from that.
But he's on life support. You see here? Look at that. He's all bandaged up.
Now, first of all, who are these people in the helicopter? They're definitely not police.
I don't know. You know, this reminds me of RoboCop a lot, doesn't it? Like where they were waiting for the perfect officer to arrive, and doesn't it have that vibes to it where they're just waiting for the perfect person to use for their own uses here later on?
It feels like he has that level of plot armor, because, I mean, in RoboCop, they just sit there and literally shoot 9,000 bullets into him at point-blank range. Here, they just shoot Michael Long in the head, and I'm just here going, what level of plot armor is going to protect him? And then, lo and behold, they tell us.
They tell us the plot armor. He's going to be at FLAG, the Foundation for Law and Government, and it's run by Wilton Knight. He's the old guy here, and he's been looking for someone exactly like this. There's a lot of details they don't give us, but it's very RoboCop-like. They've been looking for the perfect hero. They've been looking for someone who they know can do what he no longer can. He's dying, Wilton Knight. And here's poor Michael Long. He's on his deathbed. He has bandages. They say it looks real bad. He's not going to make it. If it was anyone else, he wouldn't have made it. And he's been weeks. And oh, my God.
Oh, yeah, and he's like, the only person who looks worse than him is you. And that's how we know Wilton Knight is going to die.
Yes. So he's the Obi-Wan Kenobi of this, by the way.
Oh, and by the way, we also find out that plot armor I was talking to you about, what it is. It's called a metal plate in his head.
That's right. They're like, oh, if he didn't have that metal plate, he wouldn't have survived. And we're like, what are they talking about? And the FLAG doctor goes into great detail here. Yes, you see, he had a metal plate from a previous injury, and I guess he was in Vietnam. They mentioned this a few times. If it were not for this metal plate, he would have been dead. But it bounced off the metal plate and went through his head, and it exited, leaving his face all disgusting and distorted. So he would have been dead. Thank goodness for him and for FLAG that he had that metal plate, or we never would have had
ballistic level metal plate, you know, because that's what they put in people's head nowadays to support your skull if it's cracked. It absolutely makes no sense, but whatever. It happens, and we come to find out that it's actually a blessing in disguise, because even though Michael Long is actually a very handsome man, I'm not afraid to say that. I'm secure in my masculinity saying that. He's nowhere on the level of what his face becomes, and that's a David Hasselhoff.
Insert music here. Yes, it's the Hasselhoff. Here he is. And they take the bandages off, revealing this, and it's like, I want to see my face. Like, he's not happy to be alive. He's not like, what happened? He's like, my face. Oh, I got to see my face and everything. I'm like, what?
Wait a second. Here's something, Ramses. Look at this. There's him and Wilton and Devin just come in at this point, and there's a doctor there, and he's not asking about any of this. My face.
And he's grinning. He's like, oh, hey, everybody. I don't care who you guys are. Yeah, let me see. And they show him his face, and then he's shocked. Huh? I look like David Hasselhoff now. Yeah, exactly. So
that's when Devin tells Michael that Long has been declared dead in the eyes of the law, and now he's being offered a job to work for that nice little flag company that Ramses just mentioned, which is a division of Knight Industries, by the way, folks. Get used to that name, Knight. You're going to hear it a lot.
Right. Don't forget, Wilton Knight, that's the old man here, played by Richard Basehart. And again, he's the Obi-Wan Kenobi of this. He's pretty much getting us on our journey. He's setting everything up. And then it's pretty much going to be have at it, Michael, because I'm leaving it now. So, yeah.
And this is also where we start departing from common sense. Because apparently, the reason that Wilton Knight recruited Michael Long, now known as Michael Knight, is because he wants them to infiltrate the organization that he was investigating and bring them to justice. Which means they had to be stalking Michael for 6 months and was just literally waiting for the moment that he would get killed.
Yeah, I know. You can almost imagine him. Is he dead yet? Nope, not yet. Oh, I gotta hold on a little longer then. He's not dead yet. Is he dead yet, Devin? Nope, sorry. And then days ago, is he dead? Yep, he's finally on his death. Like, yes, all right, get him here as quickly as possible. Kind of silly, far-fetched. It makes no sense. Either it's the luckiest break ever, or they were just waiting for this to happen. I mean, you have to believe it's one or the other.
But to be fair, they do throw a training montage in there.
Yeah, so now we fast forward. We don't know how much time has passed. It could have been a week. It could have been a few days.
Could be ready within the month. Excellent.
And by the way, he has refused prolifically about not wanting to do this because he's just going to be out for revenge. And he still doesn't address the fact that he doesn't know these people. They've taken him in, they're training him, and he's just like, okay, I'm not going to do anything you ask of me.
Yeah, Wilton Knight says, Michael, you got to join us, please. We just saved your life. Can you please repay us by helping us out? We're gonna. You're like, no, I just lost my partner out there. I'm not joining anybody. Thanks for everything, but no. And I'm thinking, like, wow, that's kind of harsh.
Well, to be fair, Ramses, He is probably thinking, if you were following me for the past 6 months, why didn't you stop my partner from getting killed and save me?
Yeah, it's probably true. He's wondering, wait a minute, what's going on here? He realized he was being stalked. He realized they were after. It is a little offsetting and weird. I do agree with that. Again, now we fast forward again, and now it's nighttime. And he sees a lot of workers entering and leaving like a facility, a garage area. And he's like, what is going on here? These workers wearing this weird clothes keep entering and exiting, and finally he's going to say, all right, I want to see what's going on in there. And he sneaks into the garage. So now we're going to have our big reveal. You saw it in the opening credits. You know there's a car here.
It's a black Pontiac Firebird Trans Am. By the way, folks, it looks exactly to the car that Michael Long had before he was shot. Later on, they don't clarify if this is a new car or his car.
It's really left ambiguous, but it's not ambiguous because they said they've been working on this for months and months and months. So you have to realize they've been working on this, but they don't make it clear, did they suddenly put all the parts in his car, or was it just a very, very, very big coincidence that it looks like his car?
And this is where Devin...
Enough, Devin. You've had your fun with our guest.
Hops out of the car and says, yes, quite so. And then we realize, all right, here's the car that we saw in the credits. We don't know what it is yet. So Michael thinks it's his car, but that they altered it. And again, it's not left clear. I'm assuming it's not, but it seems like the biggest coincidence in the world if it isn't. Because how many people have a black Trans Am Pontiac Thunderbird ready to go? It doesn't make any sense.
Eventually, Devin takes Michael on a ride and explains to him that this is the Knight Industries 2000, a super advanced car made with indestructible metals that will turn you into a god if you drive them.
Now Michael makes a very, very funny line when he enters the car. He says,
What's all this? Looks like Darth Vader's bathroom.
so yes, they go on the road and Michael's impressed. This car can reach amazing speeds very quickly. It does all sorts of tricks and you feel safer than ever. To end it, the car actually goes into auto mode. If we review more of these Night Riders, which we hope we are, we'll talk more about all the features and functions of this car, because this episode doesn't really show much. But every time you have the normal mode, that's when the driver is controlling. When you see auto mode, that's when the car takes over. So it goes into auto mode, and suddenly this car speeds off like a rocket, and is playing chicken with a truck, pretty much. And we're not kidding, a semi-truck.
At 150 miles an hour, by the way, and the truck still looks like it's maintaining distance throughout this until it zooms around the side. This is after Devin tells him that the car is designed to assist and help the driver, and Michael goes, why didn't it just slow down instead of going to like 150 miles an hour to swerve around the truck? Devin goes, oh well, that's because it's showing off for you.
And that's going to come into play later. We'll learn more about what the car is about. And again, you guys should understand, but we're acting like you guys don't know. So play along with us. You have no idea what's going on. All right. So after that fun joyride, now all of a sudden, Wilton is dying.
From an unknown disease, which will never ever be mentioned ever again. And they have a wonderful, touching thing. You know, Michael, I've only known you for less than a week, but I've been stalking you for 6 months, and I feel like I know you very well. And I want to tell you,
One man can make a difference.
Get used to that saying because they're going to play it a lot and it's going to be a theme of the show for most of it. In the last season it got a little weird, but for most of the show, that's what the whole mantra of the show is, that Michael Knight and this car are going to be a team like no other, and they're going to do what law enforcement have been unable to do. It's going to hit Michael a little bit. We don't know it yet, but Michael's going to take Wilton's words to heart. Wilton dies, and it's very sad. You know, he coughs and gags, and then he's dead, and that's the end of him, and we never refer or see him. There's no funeral, there's no nothing. And Michael goes into the garage. He's about to run away, and Devin stops him. Devin's like, wait a minute, Michael. Here's your new identification, Michael Knight. Here's your car registration, Michael Knight. Here's your credit card, Michael Knight. You are no longer Michael Long. You're now Michael Knight from this point forward. Don't let what we did go in vain. And he's like, I gotta get him, Devin. I'm sorry. But he's like, wait, there's more things I have to tell you. You know, there should have been like another hour worth of details put into this because it's so disjointed. The guy dies. It's like, how did this all happen? He's now working for him, but he's not working for him. There's details left out. He's on a mission. He's not on a mission. Who's he working for? The whole thing's very strange. And also, a fact was made that he made Michael Long look like his son. And that's going to come to play in another episode way, way down the line. But that's another fact that's made. So he's pretty much turned him into another one of his sons. That's how we saw Michael Long now as Michael Knight.
Amazing for somebody that's only known him for 6 months.
I'll tell you, it really is amazing. Michael drives off when Devin pleads with him to please stop, listen to me, I gotta tell you about KITT, we gotta work together. And Michael's pretty much like, shove it, Devin, thanks for everything, I'm gonna get him myself the only way I know how. And yeah, that's how our adventure starts.
So we have a nice 80s montage of him traveling across the country because nobody knows where Flag headquarters is at.
Yeah, and that's another thing I'm gonna mention. It's left very, very, very ambiguous where Flag is located. All we know is it's probably in California or Arizona, because all their missions seem to be in that area. Like most shows of this time period, everything was LA based because that's where the writers are all located, so everything seems to be in LA.
And don't forget, if you wear a cowboy hat, you're a bad boy.
So we know it's somewhere California or Arizona, but they never really spell out where are the Flag headquarters located. We just know it's either Southern California or Southern Arizona. That's it. That's the only clue we get.
But what we do know is that Michael is getting tired of just driving by himself, and he wants to listen to some music and asks how to turn on the music. And guess what? KITT answers him instead.
I am the voice of Night Industry 2000's microprocessor, KITT for easy reference. A KITT if you prefer.
Yeah, this is where we first learned that, oh my god, the car talks, and that's what Devin was trying to tell him. Devin said, Michael, I gotta tell you some more about the car, and Michael pretty much shrugged and drove off. Well, that's what he was gonna tell him. The car can talk and has a mind of its own. So he comes to a sudden stop and wants nothing to do with it.
And what's more, I don't intend to drive around in a car that talks back to me, so either Devin pulls your plug or you get yourself another driver.
So he shuts him up while music plays. So that's the first interaction Michael and KITT have. And then we have a music montage now of Michael just falling asleep, slowly drifting off as all this generic music is playing. And they're all covers, we think. It all sounds like it's cover music.
Now, they do later on play a song that isn't a cover, but in this part, it's all covers.
And now we have a funny part, because don't forget, Knight Rider is like every other 80s show. It's going to have serious moments, but it's also going to have comedy. And there's a few comedic moments in this pilot. Anytime the law gets involved with any situation here, it's always something funny or silly or wacky. We're going to have two patrolmen who see Michael falling asleep while KITT takes over the driving.
The good news is, these are not the malicious, ignorant cops they is always portrayed in 80s shows. They think he's fallen asleep and are literally driving up to him, pounding on his windows like, wake up! Wake up!
Yeah, they're actually trying to wake him up. He's going down Dead Man's Curve. Remember the sign in Pee-wee's Big Adventure with all the squigglies? That's the road Knight Rider's going on, the squigglies. And of course, KITT's able to take the road no problem. And they're amazed, like, how is a guy fully asleep able to go down that windy, and they're pounding on his car? KITT's the one that actually wakes Michael up, and he says, Michael, you might want to act like you're deaf and that you have a kink in your neck. And Michael's like, what are you talking about? And then pretty much Michael realizes the cops are there. He's like, oh. And then he puts on the deaf and a broken neck routine for the cops here.
And you know what? They just let it go at that and said, just be more careful.
They're not the smartest because they believe this stupid excuse. Ridiculous, but at least it's something that makes a little bit of sense and they can buy it.
Yeah, especially since they said themselves that he couldn't be asleep and take those turns, so he just more or less made them believe what they already thought was true.
KITT helped him out, and that's what we have to learn here, that KITT is on Michael's side, and he's a smart computer. He's trying to help Michael, not be against him. So that was the first bit of showing that KITT wants to be Michael's friend, and he's not his enemy. He's trying to help him here.
Although, I will say, with the suggestion that KITT just gave, I'll be like, do you hate me? But it worked out, because it's the 80s, folks.
Yeah, in the 80s you can get away with this stuff, and that's why it's such a fun and magical time. So yeah, now we fast forward again, and now we're heading towards San Francisco, but we're not going to San Francisco. We're going to Silicon Valley, which is outside of San Francisco. And the town is actually Millston, which is outside San Francisco, because they do show on the mileage sign you're heading towards San Francisco. So that was where Silicon Valley is, but now we made up a city that's outside of San Francisco called Millston. So that way we can get that old school, quiet, quaint town that this is also supposed to take. Again, it makes no sense because you're going to see a lot of things. They're mixing big corporations with small town saloons and small town police stations with all these big it's just such a weird mishmash of things that don't go in one little town like
But
this.
what is true, though, is that Michael Knight is going to go to the House of the Rising Sun, which is a bar that all of these wonderful employees like to go to from Comtron. If you want to get information from them, that's where he's going to have to go.
Yeah, so while he's in there, we're now going to have two thugs show up. And it's very stereotypical 80s stuff. They're both as generic as you can imagine. Get a load of that. You know, it's going to be one of those, and they see KITT. The guy wants him very badly, and the guy's like, no, don't do it. They're like, oh, that car's going to be mine. Just will you wait and see? And it's building up for something later on. And they're going to do this a lot in Knight Rider, by the way. They're going to have a running C-plot, I guess we'll call it, where it's some wacky thing that's going on that every now and then will show show up constantly during the episode, and this is the C-plot of this episode.
Inside, Michael actually talks to a waitress, Maggie, who's played by Pamela Susan Shoup, who becomes angry when Michael asks her about Tanya Walker. Because remember, the entire purpose is to get this woman who shot him in the head.
Yeah, so now this is going to be the funniest, most over-the-top reaction. She pretty much spills the drink on Michael and hisses and boos at him. How dare you bring up that name? You can hear all the roaring sounds in the background. Head manager, I guess he's the manager of the owner.
Wait, I recognize him. Isn't that Magnum P.I.?
So yes, Magnum's brother here shows up, says, Maggie, that's it. I had enough of you. And she's like, screw you. And she throws the tray still with the drinks at him and says, I quit. And he's just shrugging like, was it something I said? And she stomps off. And Michael's like, no, no, no. And he's trying to protect her. Michael didn't realize he was getting the woman fired. That wasn't his intention.
Because you gotta remember, Michael is a good guy. And like all good guys, he doesn't like to see people suffer. But after this happens, this catches the eye of one of the girls over there as he leaves to go back to KITT. And she confronts him outside in the parking lot and asks, you know, what are you doing here, basically? And he says, well, I'm looking for a friend, Tanya.
Yeah, that's the magic name because she pretty much owns the whole town here of Millston. So yeah, that's the biggest name in Millston. Anytime you mention Tanya, it's dum dum dum. Yep, so.
He's trying to push himself off as a peddler himself and says, well, who can I ask is calling? And he basically says, an old friend.
And they're acting all like, yeah, we don't know. But Michael knows better. He knows, they know full well who Tanya is, and he put all the groundwork in place there. But now he has to be the hero here because it's Michael Knight. He has to now go to Maggie and make sure she's all right because he feels really bad. He didn't mean to get her fired or upset. He was just trying to take down the woman that shot him, and rightfully so. Maggie in her 80s Volkswagen, very cool, Bumblebee would be proud, trying to get away from Michael. She wants nothing to do with him. She doesn't trust him.
You better move that or I'll put a dent in your car. As she literally is backing into his car at the same time.
Right,
so I'm going like, what?
We get no chance to move it. She's already threatening him. But this is after she told her whole life story here of why she hates Tanya so much. Yeah, so she backs into the car, and of course, KITT is indestructible, as we've made very clear. And Maggie's bumper falls right off, and she's like, I'm having a really bad day. And I'm thinking to myself, yeah, you caused all this. You're the one that got mad. You're the one that quit your job, and you're the one that backed into his car. Michael didn't do anything. You did all of this to have your bad day.
By the way those bumpers back then were attached are not like these little foam ones that are designed to crumple and fall off. It's attached, as you can see here, to 2 bars. And it literally just falls straight down, which means that the bumper isn't damaged in the least, it just fell off.
For some reason now she can't drive the car just because it's missing a bumper, which again doesn't make sense. It's not like the car was damaged, the bumper came off, that was it. You can drive a car without a bumper. Yes, it's not 100% safe, but the car works just fine without the bumper. But for some reason now she can't drive the car and Michael has to drive her home. So this has become very strange. And again, this is going to be another Knight Rider reoccurrence where somehow the main female focal point, the heroine side, will wind up in Michael's car.
But unlike in the future of a lot of these series, not many of them actually have children. Maggie here does have a child named Buddy, who is played by Barrett Oliver.
Yes, and Buddy is your, again, stereotypical 80s annoying kid. He's all hyper and excited and oh boy and yay, and a lot of the story's going to get rushed. And these two characters aren't going to make it too long, but they do play a pivotal part because now all of a sudden Michael's going to learn about a race. They call it a demolition derby. That's not really what this is. This is a figure-8 race where they just have to keep trying to avoid each other, and that's where the destruction happens. That's all it is. That's the only twist to this whole race. This is where the cliffhanger happens. So remember where we said that this was cut into 2 episodes for syndication? Well, this is where the half point would happen. It would be to be continued right here, and it would be Michael's going to enter the race, and Maggie's all shocked about this. It's to be continued. Let's see what happens next. But pretty much it would have gone to commercial in the original release of this, and we would have just came back in 2 minutes later after the commercial break.
And the best part is, they immediately, when they come back from the commercial, if you watch this original format, straight to the demolition derby, and you're going, huh, this actually looks like a demolition derby, the way they're portraying it, but things aren't always what they seem.
No, they're definitely not, and I don't understand all the details of the race, but it seems like it's one of those, all the people that sort of have a little money or a connection with the Comtron company are part of this, and whoever wins gets like a $5,000 prize, and they get a little trophy or something. I'm like, the whole thing makes no sense to me, but whatever, it gives another reason for Michael to infiltrate everything and get closer to Tanya, because Michael has to actually talk to Tanya to enter this race. So finally, Michael and his Michael Knight guys talks to Tanya. Tanya, of course, doesn't recognize him because he looks totally different, but Tanya's very suspicious because it's very strange for someone to be looking for her. Usually she's the one looking for everybody else, because don't forget, she's the real boss of all this. So Charles Acton says, oh, come on, let him race, what's the big deal? And they warn him, you know, this is a demolition race, your car might get wrecked. And he's like, yeah, after this race, you're going to want to talk to me. So yeah, she's like, all right, I'll sign you up. And then he says, I want 2 passes because I want my friend here. And it's funny because Maggie is a huge enemy of Tanya, but she sees him standing right there and doesn't react at all, which I found very strange when she sees Maggie and her son standing
Exactly. So apparently it wasn't that big of a deal. The reason that Michael is doing this, as you can see here, is he wants to get her attention and Walker's attention. Hey, look at this top-of-the-line car. Maybe this is what they're trying to sell to me. You know, it was a good ploy. But the bad part is before the race, Buddy goes missing.
Oh my god, where is Buddy? Yeah, like I said, typical 80s kid. He's all goofy, he's mischievous. Where did he go?
So Michael actually says, don't worry, he'll show up, it's fine. And Maggie, being a typical 80s mom's like, as long as he's not like out trying to kill the president, it's alright.
Right, again, a very weird reaction. And I know this is a different time. We're retro experts. We know the 80s are not the 2020s. Believe me, we know this. But your kid at the middle of a racetrack with all these people that Maggie can't stand and they're all in on this evil company, she's not going to react with a shrug like, yeah, boys will be boys, pretty much. Because the big reveal is Buddy is in Michael's car. There you go. So Buddy ran away to join the race with Michael, and we're supposed to believe that Maggie just is shrugging, sitting there like, oh, gee, I guess he'll show up eventually while this whole race is going on.
Oh, by the way, she's in one of the owner's seats, which means she's up front. So she wouldn't notice that Buddy's strapped into the front seat with Michael.
And now the funny part of this is there's a reason why Buddy's in there, because we got to show off the cool effects of KITT, and that's why the kid is here. So the race is on, and I want to mention that every car he's racing is a town car.
Maggie made it seem like, and even Tanya herself said, they don't take junkers. Well, that's pretty close to as a junkers you're going to get when everybody has these things. That means they're common as dirt, they're not top of the line.
They just pretty much said, yeah, give us all the same model, nobody cares. So again, a lot of weird things in this episode.
Wait, Ramses, pause it right here. Look at that. That's not Michael doing that driving right there.
No, because look at this. Yes, KITT is showing off with some, not Michael in the car, using ski mode, and he's doing turbo boost. And now this is where the kid comes in. Remember I said there's a reason why the kid's in the car? The kid's going to do the, oh boy, what does this button do routine. He's going to do it twice, by the way. And he's not pushing any of the regular buttons. Like, you know how in the series, it'll clearly say, no, he's pushing a generic green button twice here. And now we have the Spy Hunter car. So the first button the kid pushes, an oil slick happens. So oil comes out and the car spin out of control. And Michael, using his, kid, don't do that, as you know, not very reactive, like, don't push any buttons. And the kid's like, golly gee, won't push any more buttons.
You know, his reaction from Michael reminds me of a certain someone.
Stop, don't.
Yeah, I wonder if they're one of the same. That's pretty much the same reaction Michael gave. So the kid pushes another button, the green button right below. And again, these are not the usual buttons that you'll see used in the show where they label all these, because they do have an oil slick and a smoke screen button. Kid will push another one and the smoke screen pops out. And the same thing happens. Oh my god, I can't see, and the car spins out of control. So there you are, we're showing off that KITT is not your regular car. And Michael wins easily.
And he's going to donate the $5,000 to charity. He also gets the attention of Tanya and Wilson. And Tanya wants to find out more about him.
Get me those fingerprints right now. I gotta see those fingerprints. And he's like, well, gee, it's not gonna be so easy. You do what you have to do. And he's like, all right. And again, it's left all mysterious. What's he gonna do to get these fingerprints? I don't know.
So at this point, you're thinking they're just going to kill him and take the car?
So now we're gonna have the end of Maggie and Buddy's play in this whole episode. Because, you know, and usually in Knight Rider, the girl will stay for the whole episode, and we keep going back to her. Nope, not in this episode. After Michael drops off Maggie and Buddy after the race, Michael says, can I come in? And Maggie gives him the brush up, pretty much. She says, no, I'm not ready yet. I can't handle this. I don't want another relationship. And Michael grins, all right, no problem. And he gives her a kiss. And that's it. We never see Maggie and Buddy again for the rest of the episode.
So guess what? Now it's time to fill Devin in on what's going on. So you get to see another artifact of the 80s, a phone booth.
Oh, yes, I remember those. Yes, those little boxes. Oh, yeah, didn't Matthew Broderick use that in War Games? A phone booth where you can make calls to anyone, but you got to put change in to keep the call going. Good
and
stuff.
By the way, kids at home watching this, don't do what Michael just did. Leave your door open and the car keys in the ignition turned on.
Even in the 80s, people didn't do this. I mean, again, a lot of things had to happen for all this to play out. It makes no sense. Why in the world would Michael leave his car wide open? Wasn't Michael Long a police officer?
Well, yes, he was.
I mean, it makes no sense. Why would you do this? Here we go. Wacky scene number 2 is continued because then our generic thugs show up again. I don't believe it. It's the car. So we're supposed to believe in this whole area, they're going to randomly find that car just sitting there. But yes, it's TV logic. We got to believe it. So our two bad guys hop in and grin. Ha ha ha, we got your car now. And Michael's like, no.
Yeah, he leaves Devin wondering what's going on. And Michael isn't necessarily worried about them taking a car. He's worried what the car is going to do to them.
Like, all right, don't say I didn't warn you. So now the two thugs are showing off, wow, this is the best thing ever, and they're speeding, and they're doing all sorts of things. And then KITT's like had enough of it. KITT doesn't need the freeloaders here. In later episodes, I think it's going to be that you can't just have anyone drive the car. I think it has to be very specifically, it's Michael Knight, and you can't just suddenly turn on the car. KITT won't work for them.
Continuity in shows like this is a little bit wonky, as you all know, so I guess sometimes it will work in the future, sometimes it won't. All I do know is that KITT has some fun, and this is where you learn KITT has ejector seats.
Yes, one of his best features, and believe me, he will use this many times in later episodes. You will see a lot of the ejection seat feature. That's one of their favorite special effects to go to because it's such a cool thing. So for this time, KITT pretty much takes full control of the car and he drives them both to a police station. Very smart of KITT to do, because if you have two thugs, where you take them? You take them to a police station. And both of them were ejected, and very nice of KITT to open the sunroof so both of them flip open.
Yeah, because otherwise KITT would have just killed them.
Yeah, their hands would have gone right to the top there, and that would have been instant death. But he pretty much did kill him, because look what happens. They're both ejected. They fly through the windshield of the police car in front of them, and you see the whole thing shattered. The police are like, whoa, you know, again, acting all goofy and whatever. And that's the end of the scene. We never see the thugs again. We don't understand how they just watched KITT drive off with no reaction at all. They don't
by itself, folks. They were literally right in the police station, surrounded by police, and then I guess KITT activated stealth mode, just backed up and went back to pick up Michael.
So KITT is a little mad that Michael allowed him to get stolen, but KITT gets over it when Michael apologizes. So we're showing that KITT has a bit of a personality, and he gets insulted easily. And that's not going to be a running gag, really, because they are going to lose that. They sort of change his personality as the show goes on here.
So it's time to meet Tanya at House of the Rising Sun, and instead of meeting Tanya there, we get 4 thugs.
Yes, that's right, because Tanya's going to set Michael up. Because remember, this is Tanya we're talking about. So she doesn't want to meet Michael. She just wants to make him so he's out of the way for a while so she can find out more about him. So the thing is, the 4 thugs are supposed to beat up Michael, and then he's supposed to get arrested for all that. But it turns out a little differently, because suddenly Michael is a kung fu master. He warns them all, I know martial arts. They all laugh loudly at him, and then the next thing you see is all the guys flying outdoors, stacked on top of each other as the cops show up. So there you go, comedy moment number 3.
I don't know much about martial arts, but I do believe that 4 people this size against somebody David Hasselhoff's size would have a little bit easier time of subduing Michael. Unless they go at him one at a time, which it, from the shots here, makes it look like they are doing.
But just as the cops show up, he finished up the last guy, and of course Michael's the one being arrested. But I think they arrested another guy, because in his jail you're going to see another one of the thugs right next to him. But
which makes no sense, because he's the only other one I guess they arrested, because there's 4 lying in a pile. Although in the cutscenes previous to this, it only shows like 2 guys being thrown outside, not all 4.
Yeah, a lot of continuity errors, but for some reason Michael and only one of the thugs is arrested, and the other 3 are just never seen again. That's the end of them.
Before Michael gets to jail, we get to see that KITT is being towed to Comptron, and they want to figure out all the secrets of this vehicle.
So it looks like he was set up, and while Michael's in jail, they search his fingerprints. So this is a funny scene, because it's like, wow, this is like the most corrupt woman ever, and somehow she has power and a reach with everything. She owns the police station, she owns this and that. They're able to police file scan using the fingerprints that the police officer took, and it comes back as Michael Knight, identity unknown. I'm going to show you the screen cap, because they really worked hard on getting this exactly right, which is really cool. I love the details when they use accurate props in shows like this. It's only on the screen for 2 seconds, but here it is, and they really make a real notice out of it.
And by the way, with the fact of them towing it to Comptron, you already knew that that must have meant that Tanya has bribed the police, because they're not impounding it at the impound lot.
Speaking of the police, that's where we go next. Zoom into Michael. He's on the phone with Devin, so he gets his free phone call. And again, this is a movie and TV show fallacy. You do not get that free phone call. That's not how it works in real life. You gotta wait for a lawyer, or you gotta wait for the right time. But anyway, he's on the phone with Devin, and Devin's shocked, like, what the hell happened? He's like, oh, they're setting me up and whatever. Devin's like, well, all right, I'll come there, but, you know, it's gonna take some time. So you have to remember, in the early episodes, Devin and Michael weren't friends either. So a lot of things changed. So now back to Comptron, and they're trying to get into this car. And remember, we made it very clear throughout this whole show that KITT is indestructible. So think drills can penetrate his hood? No. But they're like, that's it. We're gonna break Michael out, and I want him disposed of. KITT then realizes, uh-oh, I better rescue him now, because that's where they're gonna finish off Michael. It's either me or him, and KITT acts.
And on the way there, it gives Michael time to talk to one of the thugs. And he basically enlightens him. He doesn't ask questions. You know, what are you doing here? They're both playing coy. But the thing is for side thug, he's actually not a bad guy. And the reason he's not a bad guy is revealed very shortly because we see Wilson coming with a court order saying, release Michael Knight. What judge in their right mind would just say, oh, you now own that guy?
Right, that doesn't happen. And I don't care if you're bought off or not. You would lose your judgeship no matter what in a second. You can't do it. Doesn't matter corrupt or not. You just can't do it. It doesn't work like that. But TV logic, there you go. He got the court order. Suddenly, KITT already escaped and he's zooming right to the jail.
Into the jail.
We have to show off how great and indestructible KITT is. He drives right through the wall, right through the cage, and Michael slams down onto the roof.
Oh,
and is like,
by
oh,
the
hi,
way,
KITT.
look at this scene. Do you notice that the jail cell bars are flying right where Michael should be, yet suddenly just drops down from the ceiling? Michael should be dead.
Michael drives off. And guess where he's going? Back to Comptron. That's right, because we're going to keep heading to Comptron. It's like the only clue we have in this whole show. Comptron, Comptron, Comptron. Michael has to get in there without them finding out. And now again, we're going to show off more KITT abilities, because that's what this is all about. Remember, the show is about the car. It's about a good-looking guy driving an overpowered car. That's really all the show is about. Michael's like, gee, KITT, how do I get into the building? And KITT's like, well, if you put the whatever, and then you push that button, I'll be able to. And Michael's like, well, all right, what do I do?
600 pounds of pressure, folks.
Right, and he pushes the eject button, and then we have one of the worst effects ever here, where it looks like they sped it up or played it in reverse with a body double or a dummy sort of just floating in the air as supposed to be Michael Knight landing on the roof of the building via an eject button.
Now that looks really organic, doesn't it, folks? Not absolutely some trickery caused by editing, now does it?
Tanya is panicking at this point. The car escaped, Michael escaped, it's all unraveling. Tanya's realizing, wait a minute, I think they're onto us. She doesn't know if it's the FBI or some secret government agency or whatever, but she realizes, and she's a smart bad guy. Usually you don't see competent bad guys in these shows. A-Team, Knight Rider, Airwolf, they all have very stupid bad guys who don't care and they're cocky. She's actually like, let's get out of here. I think the gig is up. I'm leaving now. But if anyone sees Michael, get him. I don't care. Whoever wants to kill him, kill him. You have my permission. Kill Michael, and I'm getting out of here.
And this is where Wilson's, once again, being the stupid bad guy, is like, no, no, no. Think of all the other money we could get. When she gets up there to take all the files on her 5-inch floppy, which she calls microfilm.
Yeah, this is a great scene. For anyone that loves old school technology, it's a very old school computer here. This gigantic floppy disk, and you see all the crystal clear files. You know this was just like a screen playing movie footage, because there's no computer in 1980 whatever that can do what this computer is doing onto a floppy disk. It's impossible.
Don't you remember hitting /run command, things like that, folks? That's what you're doing on those computers. You're not just pushing a single button like Scotty here, henpecking out a formula.
Exactly. No, it doesn't happen, but again, TV show will allow it, whatever. Stop it, Tanya, I got you. And then Michael shows up. All right, so finally, Michael is going to get his revenge here, holding the gun on her. The gig is up, and Tanya does what every bad guy does. She does the Voldemort. No, we can rule together. It'll be me and you. I'll let you in everything. We can do it all.
And then she blames Wilson, and then, of course, Michael points out the obvious, that only the person in charge can make the promises you're making. And she's like, oh.
Well, all right, but I'll give you millions. You know, we'll work together.
But then the security guard shows up, and she's like, kill him! And she gets away while Michael gets shot in the chest. But we don't know what happens to this guard because you see a bullet hits the door. But this is where some more of that fuckiness goes on because you have no idea what's going on with this guard because you don't see him again.
Isn't that supposed to be a funny moment? But it's very funny. This fight scene between Michael and the guard is one of the most awkward scenes. So you know it's probably supposed to be like Michael chops him, he's supposed to knock him out, or some sort of scene where Michael is knocking him out.
By the way, if you've seen this, the Michael chop to the neck is a very common thing in this. Doesn't use here. Instead, he just gingerly hugs him and puts his hand over his mouth. And then he just passes out instead of putting him in a chokehold. By the way, folks, if you actually put somebody in a proper chokehold, they can't scream.
It made no sense. This whole scene looked so goofy and dopey. This is the take they're going with. It didn't look like he did anything. It looked like he was hugging him and they're swinging around and then the guy screams and then just decides to pass out. Michael didn't put any pressure on him. He didn't use any move. He didn't do anything.
Take a look at this. See? That didn't look natural either now, did it?
So the point of this scene is Michael needs a disguise to get out. So somehow he loses his jacket. I guess we'll never see that again, right? No. We don't know where he puts his clothes, but he switches into the guard's outfit.
He's bleeding so quickly, he should have already passed out from blood loss.
Oh, yeah. The blood's seeping out. It's all over his hands, as you see him next.
All over the shirt.
Yeah, it's everywhere. So he's in the guard uniform, and he approaches the guard who's guarding KITT. And he's like, hey there, you're off duty, you can go upstairs. And then miraculously a call on the walkie-talkie comes through.
All guards be aware that Baker's uniform has been stolen. Repeat, the suspect is now wearing a guard's uniform.
So the guard's like, hey, wait a minute, guy in guard, hey, it's you. And then he holds a gun up at him. Again, another awkward scene. So Michael's like, all right, you got me, but, you know, you might want to watch out behind you. You know, the oldest trick in the book. The guy's like, I'm not falling for that nonsense. There's no one, I got you, and I'm going to get a reward for this, and this is great. And then KITT just pretty much comes to life, his headlights and his sideline lights going back and forth, and he charges at the guard. The guard's like, oh my god, and don't hurt me, my mother.
Oh, by the way, he would got a $10,000 bonus for keeping Michael there.
Yeah, suddenly money doesn't matter that much when you're about to be killed. Yes. So Michael's like, oh my god, how pathetic. Yeah, just stand over there, please. You're pathetic, kid. Get out of here. And he lets him stay there, and Michael just drives off.
And by the way, he still has enough blood in him to keep going because he calls Devin and finds out that KITT can contact Devin.
Yeah, so why didn't he do that all along? What's with this whole phone booth routine? And again, we'll never see Michael using a phone booth again because he does use KITT in almost every episode to make phone calls. But KITT is actually very concerned because even when Michael's on the phone, KITT's like, Michael won't let me take over Devin. And Devin's like, unfortunately, the driver has to give you permission. And if Michael doesn't give you permission...
Wait, no, Ramses, I got a better say for this.
Go on, Megatron. You're in the driver's seat.
So, yes, I guess he is in the driver's seat, technically, because KITT's very upset, but Michael's like, I'm not going to give up. A man's got to do what a man's got to do. All or nothing. You know, a lot of heroic phrases here. While Michael's, like, passing out, he's all, you know, bloody, and he's all weak.
And they know that they're going to the airport, so they have to get there. But, of course, the bad guys are not going to let him get there. He's trying to figure out how they're going to stop him. Well, guess what? He's called out the Comptron trucks to stop them. And we actually get to see one of the thugs again.
And there you're going to use a few methods. They're going to have the trucks now trying to stop Michael, and they're also going to shoot at Michael. So they're like, there's no way he's getting there. We are going to corner him. So one of the trucks now is already blocking the path.
Look at this road. Look how wide it is. Doesn't it look like you could drive around this truck in this scene?
Yes, and that's what I was thinking all along. I'm like, why not just go around him? How's the truck going to start up again? You can get around very easily. You're in a mobile car, and he's in a huge, powerful truck. But no, Michael's like, we're not stopping for anything, KITT. Can you turbo boost? And KITT's like, oh my god. Michael, no, what are we doing? He's like, all right, we're doing it. And you see the car speed up. And we get one of the lamest turbos. The turbo boosts are going to get much, much better as the show goes along, but very lame looking the few times it's used.
Oh, don't worry. This turbo boost is actually lame because he doesn't go through the center of the trailer. It looks like he goes through the bottom half of the trailer.
Right. But the reaction of the truck driver, oh my god.
He drove through it. Yeah. And the people in the helicopter were like, what? That's impossible. It's like, no, I just saw it.
That's it. He's had enough of this. He wants Michael stopped, and he gets on his communication unit, and he says, I'll give $15,000 to any truck driver that stops him. And we see another truck driver we've seen before. He's like, $15,000? Are you kidding me? I'm not going for $15,000. I've had enough of this.
So he says, so if that thing can go through trailers, what good is it going to do me if I get killed? To any truck driver out there who can stop them, I'll give you $25,000. And then suddenly that extra $10,000 was like, okay.
Oh, all right. Okay, now that you made it 25, that's good. Yeah, it's the silliest, most corniest scene. It's like, really, you're worried, and you're like, whatever, I don't want to die, but for an extra $10,000, you're willing to die? No, okay, so I guess that's the value of life.
Well, here's the funniest thing. Remember how that wonderful turbo boost only got him halfway through a trailer? Well, guess what? We're going to jack this up to 11 because they're playing chicken at each other. He's getting ready to run him over and getting ready to jump out. And then Michael hits the turbo button and jumps the entire semi-truck and rig.
It's a very bad effect, but it's a cool moment in that it shows that really KITT is the most indestructible car you can get out of any situation. Very ridiculous, over the top.
Here's the stupidest thing ever. Vernon Gray, the pilot, literally just hands out of nowhere Wilson a shotgun and says, you gotta stop him with this. I was sitting here thinking, first of all, you're going to be near point blank for a shotgun to work against it. Secondly, this thing had carbide diamond tips that couldn't get through it. What makes you think a shotgun will?
From long distance, by the way. They're flying so far, 1,000 feet overhead. You think a shotgun from 1,000 feet is going to make a dent in a car that a drill couldn't get through? Really?
To their credit, they actually fly about 50 feet away from it, which is alright, not good. But here's where the utter ridiculousness happens. They shoot the shotgun at the car. It bounces off and hits the helicopter with enough force to nearly blow it out of the sky.
We're heading to the airport for the final climax of the scene. Wilson and Gray are still trying to stop him. They're going to meet Tanya. You're going to think the helicopter crashes. No, it really doesn't. They're just showing how powerful KITT is and that the bullet bounced back at them. The helicopter's inoperable now and they have to land it at the airport.
Now we see Tanya with her briefcase. By the way, this makes no sense when they showed all she took from there was a 5.5-inch floppy. And it's time to do the most famous thing of the 80s, play chicken. And the person that flinches first is, of course, KITT, who thinks Michael's insane for doing what he's about to do, which is literally taking off the side of a wing of a plane.
Yeah, there's nothing KITT can't do. And, you know, usually wings are much higher than a car. Not this plane. KITT's able to drive right through it.
Holy crap, did you see that thing just caught fire? Planes don't do that.
No, they definitely don't, but in this world they do. So the plane's inoperable. It has to come to a stop. All three of our bad guys run out of it. What happens to all vehicles that get on fire? Yes, exactly that. And it's a weird looking scene, but it's still cool. Hey, you gotta have things explode because we are an action show here. Tanya's furious. Michael's just ruined all her plans here. And she wants, again, finish him off once and for all. She's gonna finish what she did in Las Vegas.
Wait a second, Ramses. Don't tell me she's going to do something incredibly stupid that was foreshadowed with that shotgun, is she?
Oh, of course she is, yes. Because remember, Tanya's the only one that knows who Michael really is. Remember, no one else does. None of the other bad guys. Only Tanya realized that this is Michael Long and he wants revenge. So we had to remove her, because remember, this is a secret identity. Nobody can know that Michael Knight and Michael Long are one and the same. So you know something has to happen to her, but what's going to happen?
As a matter of fact, this is one of the things that confused me the most. He was going to shoot her in the office. There was no doubt of that. Now he's like, no, Tanya, don't do it.
And of course she shoots it, and the same exact thing that happened before happens. So we already learned that whenever you fire a bullet at KITT, it bounces right back at you. And that's
with even more force.
Right, and that's exactly what happens. She fired it point blank at Michael's window. It's made of that alloy. It bounces right back, and boom, hits Tanya, and that's it. She's dead just like this.
Because you're going to have heroes killing bad people in the 80s, unless it's a specific type of show. And now here's the thing that puzzles us once again. You see the state police and all these other police officers rolling in, and here's KITT in the middle of the firestorm, dead people all around him, and he just backs up and drives away and says, I'm going to take Michael to the hospital. And all the police officers are like, I don't know what happened here. What's going
They're all
on?
looking confused and shrugging, and they're surrounding our remaining bad guys here, and that's it. That's the end of the scene. We never hear what happened to them. We never see anything else of it. Michael gets away. It seems like a lot of stuff was cut out of this.
You know what's even stranger, Ramses?
What's that?
Because the scene following this, it shows Michael in perfect health, having a nice talk with Devin, giving the wonderful catharsis of what happened to the surviving bad guys. And there's one problem with this.
So KITT is nowhere to be found.
And can you guess what that problem is?
Well, I know what that problem is. You have a car to drive. You don't need to fly home with them.
I'm guessing the Flag Foundation must be like in the Arctic Circle of Canada or something.
Forget KITT for a second. The scene ends with Devin and Michael coming to an agreement that they'll work together, but they don't have to like each other. And again, in the series, this is going to totally change. They get along great and they're best friends in the series. But for this episode, it's left with them agreeing to disagree, but they will work together. And there you go. Michael's now officially working for them begrudgingly. Like, they're going to have to learn to live with each other. And again, the series changes it. They work together perfectly as the series happens. And then we see the usual scene you see at the end of every season 1 episode. Voiceover, One Man Can Make a Difference, said by Wilton Knight. Cue the theme. Michael drives off with the theme music playing.
And that is the pilot.
Yes.
And compared to the A-Team's pilot episode, this one had even more plot holes that made not a lick of sense in this one.
We're going to give it our final review, and we both love Night Ride. I want to go, no matter what review we give, we both don't go over what we're going to give it. We leave it a mystery until we do this. Just realize we're reviewing the pilot for review's sake. This is what we felt of the pilot episode. Not the series, just this one episode in its total.
Since I'm the boss here, I'm going to go ahead and start with my thoughts on this pilot and rate it on a scale of 1 to 5. 5 being the best and 1 being the worst. This pilot, to me, had some of the absolute worst plot holes ever, and it was very obvious they had a much more detailed and thought out episode than what was able to be portrayed in the time slot they were given. This was actually very entertaining. Problem with this was a lot of this didn't make sense. At the beginning, Michael just accepted these people just kidnapped him and just gave him facial reconstruction for no reason. And that they took his car, which may or may not be in his to begin with, and turned it into KITT to be his partner out there in a one-man crusade against evil. And as we mentioned before, a lot of things just didn't make sense. And this isn't even me being hypercritical of it, because I love this over-the-top stuff, but I absolutely despise when they just cut out things whole cloth that needed to be told. Why did Michael like them? Why did he just ignore the fact that he's surrounded by strangers and want to look at his face? How's he even remember being shot to begin with? That was some head trauma. He should be lucky he knows who he is. The idea of a talking car in the 80s was absolutely one of my favorite things, and we have some analogs to that nowadays. Not to the level of KITT, but it was a very fun story with the idea one man can make a difference in this world. Even though there's problems with this pilot, it got it 4 seasons. So I would say that's quite a successful pilot, wouldn't you? I'm going to give it a wonderful rating of 3.5 stars. Could not go to 4 on this. There were just too many plot holes that had me and Ramsey scratching our head going, that doesn't make a lick of sense. But if you watch the series like we do, you're going to notice that a lot of the episodes have a lot of the same plot holes in it going, this doesn't make sense at all, but you just sort of shrug your shoulders and go along with it because the story is entertaining and you get to see David Hasselhoff doing what he does best, and that's being himself.
You know, I'm a very big fan of Knight Rider. I loved the show growing up, and I still own all the episodes on DVD. I've watched them 1,000 times, and every time you watch it, it's just enjoyable. It's fun after you haven't seen it for a while to remember it again. You're like, oh yeah. And the pilot episode is very important because a pilot is the make or break of a show, and I think this made it because it really showed off what the show is going to be about. It's going to be about this handsome debonair hero doing all sorts of crazy things, like he's a private investigator working for some mysterious law government organization, and he's going to have this supercar that can talk and do every ability you can think of, and it's indestructible, and it's going to be able to do jumps, and it's going to save the day, and it has a mind of its own, and it has a personality. It should be known that this, again, was made by Gary Larson. He actually wrote this episode. He didn't just create the show, he actually wrote this pilot episode, so this was his baby. He was trying to sell the show, and I think he did it effectively. The show plot has a lot of problems with it, but you have to remember, in a 2-hour pilot, there's going to be a lot of stuff that are cut out. You can only do so much, because you have to remember, you don't get 2 hours, you get like 1 hour and 40-something minutes because of all the commercials and breaks and all that stuff. Characters come and go so quickly here, it is a little confusing. Like, you have the girl and the kid, they show up for a while and then they're just suddenly gone. You have all these thugs show up and then they're gone. You have all these people in the beginning show up and then they're gone. It's just in and out, and you even have Wilton Knight show up and he's suddenly dead and he's gone. But it's a fun adventure. I do like where they're going with it, and you have to put the nonsense aside. Like, you have the thugs who steal kid, it makes no sense. Why did he leave the car on and open? I don't know. Why are the cops so bungling and not bungling? I don't know. The whole thing was strange how they portrayed cops in this also. I'm also going to give this 3.5. I think this is a wonderful start. I saw this as a kid way back when, 1983. I was in love with the show, and I was like, oh boy, I hope this catches on. And it did. And I watched all 4 seasons of it, and I don't regret it. David Hasselhoff is great, and he's going to become a great team with Devin. And we didn't meet Bonnie in this episode. That's the mechanic, but we'll meet her in the next episode. The show gets so much better from this, but it's a great start. That's going to be it for our pilot episode. Please let us know what you think. I'm sure there was a lot of people who grew up with Knight Rider like we did. And if you want to see us review more of the episodes, we'll give it the A-Team treatment. This is a show that deserves it. We can go through all 4 seasons, and the show changes so much over these 4 seasons. It's actually kind of funny. Thanks for joining us here on Vespors Retro Reviews for our Knight Rider pilot review. Please let us know what you think. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, and of course,
ring that bell.
See you all next time on Vespors Retro Reviews, and one man can make a difference.